Let's do it live on a Reaction Monday edition of the program. Nick Chubb is really good. He is really, really good. And the performances that you're getting out of him on a Sunday in and Sunday out basis feel almost historic based on what he's doing. It's a marvel to watch him play. It sucks that we lose amidst this because we're doing the things that if you go back to August and say, if you do these things, would you win? You would say unequivocally yes. If you score 28 points like you do, maybe not against this Chargers team because they are so explosive, but it wasn't their pass game that hurt you, it was their rush game. So it's a matter of that's why there's a billion reasons why this stings, but you are getting historic play out of Nick Chubb, who has established himself as the best running back in football by a very decent margin, and it's not manifesting in wins, and it salts the wounds every single Sunday, man.
It's being wasted. Nick Chubb right now, number one in the league in rushing yards, 593. Number one in the league in rushing touchdowns, 7. Number one in the league in missed tackles forced, 42. First in the league in explosive runs, 20. And the Browns are 2-3, despite having, by all metrics, an elite offense. An offense that produced 28 in this one. An offense that should have produced 31, 34, 37 to 41 minimum. Couple of field goals, and then the Jacoby Brissett interception down there. It's a team that, unfortunately, is shooting itself in the foot. Our defense is a mess. We will talk about that ad nauseum. Mm-hmm. There was a move that was made in response to the defense being a mess, and I said it last week, all week. We are not talking enough about Anthony Walker Jr.'s injury. Mm-hmm. And, folks, what you have seen since Anthony Walker Jr. left this lineup is complete chaos on the second level of our defense, inexcusably bad run defense. And Anthony Walker not only was playing at a high level himself, his knowledge of the opponent's schemes allowed him to make sure that those around him, young players like a JOK, were positioned properly and understood what was coming and what they needed to do. And so he was able to not only be good himself, but guide others and lift their play in much the way that a great point guard does or a great quarterback does. And as the quarterback of the defense, that's what he was able to do. And when he has not been there, you have seen what has happened as a result. I said this on the broadcast yesterday. Two things that were just very difficult to stomach. Austin Eckler came into this game with 140 yards rushing on the season. He rushed for 173. The Chargers had rushed for 258 yards in 4 NFL games in the year 2022. They ran for 238 yesterday. That is too easy. You actually did a pretty good job, all things considered, against Justin Herbert.
You would take that stat line. If I told you on Friday, 22 of 34, 228, a touchdown, you say win.
Win, dog.
Yeah.
That's a win. And unfortunately, we are losing games that we should be winning over and over and over again. It's happened 3 times. And so a team that could be atop the AFC, certainly atop the AFC North, finds itself now in 2-3 in a rough predicament going forward. And now we can beat anybody. I think that's obvious.
We can beat anybody. We can lose to anybody. We're not going to get run by anybody. We're not going to blow anybody out.
That's the problem. We're up 14-0.
You've got to
bury somebody, and that's
that happened against the Jets. It happened against this Chargers team. Like, you build these leads, and you're not able to put them away, and then they can come all the way back. And then mistakes that otherwise would be relatively benign are critical because you haven't done enough to put them away leading up to it. Everyone's gonna. There's a million things you can point to here. Jacoby's pick. At the line of scrimmage, just didn't see it. It's a first down at minimum.
And they only had 2 timeouts in the 2-minute warning. You would have been able to basically take all of their timeouts out and either score a touchdown on third down or kick a field goal with not a lot of time for their offense to have the football and get down the field and make a field goal with a guy who was making his NFL debut after a 6-year odyssey to get to this point.
Yeah, it's crazy because Jacoby is giving you, I think, if you go back to August, he's giving you more than what I think most people thought that he could give. The problem is that in 3 instances, and 2 of them were pretty critical, there are interceptions that are at the most inopportune times, which is something that he doesn't do any other time. I mean, he does not put the ball in harm's way except in these instances where he has, and they're just backbreakers. But this is not on him. There's a lot of blame to go around here. Our defense deserves a brunt of it for its inability to stop the rushing attack of the Los Angeles Chargers. 10.8 a carry for Austin Eckler in this game.
It's outrageous.
He was running
2.9.
untouched.
2.9.
I mean, to think that that's possible, it's just hard to wrap your head around.
If you had said to me, we would be the number 6 scoring offense in the National Football League, averaging 26.6 points per game, there is no way that we are anything other than 4-1 in my mind. I would have said, okay, maybe we could have lost to the Chargers scoring 26.6. You go back to last year. If we had scored exactly 22-0 the last 8, we win the AFC North. What has happened to our defense? We will be able to talk about some people that I thought played very well on the defensive side of the football, and there's some people that I was very excited about how they performed, and we'll talk about them. But overall, it feels like it is a defense without an identity. It feels like it is a defense that unfortunately is too soft, that does not have fire. And I don't know how much I know you're not waiting all day for Sunday night. I'm not either.
Yeah.
But watching the physicality and just the passion that was on display in that Bengals and Ravens game was a very stark contrast to what we have seen defensively from not everybody, but a lot of the guys. And so –
well, what we're seeing, too, is at the heart of our defense, in the middle of our defense, we're not very good, especially without Anthony Walker. Talking middle linebacker and the 2 defensive tackles, we're bad. And so that is allowing teams to just gash us up the middle over and over and over again, and you're having to overcorrect at other positions. It's wildly frustrating to watch, and it's painful. And we certainly feel your pain out there listening, because it's
and by the way,
brutal.
Your evaluation that you just gave, the evaluation that a lot of people, certainly that I have talked to, have given of what's happening at the linebacking situation, it's clearly the same evaluation that the Browns have.
Yeah, they see it.
Because they just made a trade to get a former Pro Bowl linebacker in Deion Jones, who last year had 137 tackles for the Falcons. He's been a Pro Bowler. He's got 11 picks, 44 passes defense in his career. He's an excellent coverage linebacker. He's an excellent run-defending linebacker. He's a stud out of LSU. They knew that what they were doing right now was hindering our ability to win. And maybe it was, I don't know if he's ready to go. He's been on IR, so people understand that with his shoulder. But they understand that what's happening right now is not good enough for this team and for this defense. I mean, you go back to the play, second down on the final possession of the Chargers, where they hit a play-action boot to Mike Williams for about 20 yards, uncovered.
Yeah.
Nobody knew where they were supposed to be. Up in the snap, you have guys switching sides, run this way, run that way. Jacob Phillips doesn't know where he's supposed to be, and he was supposed to be the one covering Williams. Uncovered.
Yeah.
How many times was there somebody completely uncovered? We would blitz and then not peel with the running back. Like, I don't know how many schemes there are where somebody is completely unaccounted for. Sometimes you can bring 7, I guess, and if they put 5 out in a pass route, he would be uncounted for. But we did that a couple of times in a cover 0 situation, and they were able to just identify it. When their quarterback's 6'6", he's going to just toss it right over you. It was a frustrating game. And then we haven't even mentioned Cade York. Cade York's got to make those kicks.
Well,
he's got to make the kicks.
So well, of course he does. And here's the other thing that's strange is his ball flight has changed. I don't know if you could see it from the box.
That's that going that way west, the wind will naturally push it back right.
Okay, so here's the deal. Like, you remember the Carolina game, remember all of camp.
It's all right.
Everything's starting out right, and it's coming back. It's drawing back in left. He's doing – his ball is now on both those misses, they just went – they never came back.
You remember Boswell's
kick down there? But then he's got to adjust for that because he pushed them both just straight right. I mean,
the first one was a big push. The
right,
first one was,
but the second one – it's in the similar direction.
It started like the Carolina one, but it's not
never
come
came back.
Well, it can't.
It just stayed out
at that end of the end zone. It just doesn't.
So it's,
but
you got to hit it. You got to hit those.
Justin Tucker has never missed in the last minute of a game. Did you see that hit kick and the way he just turned and said, duh, winning?
There was something last night where they said when he – and by the way, as soon as the Bengals scored to go up, I said, well, the Ravens are winning on a field goal from Tucker. Like, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So he goes in. They said that it would have made it if it was so dead center that if he would have made it if the field goal was 18 inches across.
Yeah, because he's money.
Right down the
middle. He made like 60 in a row in the second half? It's something like that. It's something
like
absurd.
But
I think he's 19
and that's 19. Why you drafted Cade York. Not to be the best kicker in the history of football, but you spend a pick on a kicker to make these kicks. Well, that's the job.
Certainly not to miss an extra point late against the Jets, which, by the way, played a big role in that. You talk about all the other stuff, but if you're up 14, at least you're going into overtime.
Yeah.
And then 2 kicks in this one. The one at the end of the first half would have put you up 7.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big kick.
Sure.
A big kick. Missed. This one missed. Big. And you don't get those back. That's the thing that's so hard about the National Football League is you don't get these games back. And the Browns are going to be kicking themselves. Good news, our offense is unreal with a backup quarterback, and I can tell you right now, look right into the camera, there is not another team in the NFL that would be able to do what they're doing offensively with their backup quarterback other than what Kevin Stefanski and this Browns offense is doing. But we are not playing complementary football. Special teams has let us down, and the defense has let us down. And somebody needs to step up and either get in butts or make a play. If it's a player, coach, whatever it is, it cannot continue anymore because we're exceeding offensively our expectations for this football team.
Far exceeding, buddy.
Massively.
Far exceeding.
And we are far underachieving in the other 2 categories of a 3-phase game. And yes, you could say, look, Jacoby, you can't throw that pick. 100% you can't throw that pick. You can't do it. But offensively, for the most part, we've been darn good.
I mean, you're asking him to play perfect.
You're asking him to play like he's Justin Herbert, and he's not.
No, but I mean, and he's almost doing it.
He is doing it.
He's really almost doing it.
Everybody knows we want to run the ball.
Yeah.
And we're running it anyway.
Yeah.
It's come down to a few.
I mean, Amari's been great. Like, gosh
Donovan
almighty,
Peoples-Jones has been great.
Jones has been great. Like,
Njoku's been great.
Yeah. Like, it's not there. It's not on that side of the ball. It's, yeah, it's strange to watch, a defense that we saw in camp and thought this is going to be a scary defense and see it turn into what it's turned into. And to just be bullied on a regular basis. And we are. I mean, we got bullied against the Falcons last week, got bullied this week against the Chargers. And we're not playing Derrick Henry here, man. You're not playing Lamar Jackson. Like, you should be. These are teams who struggled, especially Chargers, who struggled running the football. We're non-existent.
They ran for as many yards practically in a game that they had in 4 games combined previous. They came into this averaging 2.9 yards a carry. Eckler, you said, was over 10 yards a carry. He ran for more in one game than he had on the whole season. It's just wild to me. And by the way, you want to talk about some guys on defense that I'm feeling what they put out there yesterday. Jadeveon Clowney was great.
Yeah, he was.
He was fantastic. He was the one making plays in the backfield. He was everywhere. He was playing with emotion, fired up. Greg Newsome was great.
Mm-hmm.
Greg Newsome chased down Austin Eckler.
Yeah, he did.
And that was 4 points. He saved us 4 points. We ended up holding right there. And our D was actually pretty darn good in the red zone, believe it or not. The guy kicked, 3 20-yard field goals?
Mm-hmm.
And MJ Emerson.
23's a dude.
I love that guy.
Mm-hmm.
That guy wants it. That guy wanted in the biggest moment of the game to be on Mike Williams, and he made the play.
Mm-hmm.
He is an absolute dog, and he wants it. He wants to compete. He has the fire that I think if we can get those guys to get that fire permeating, we've got a chance to have something. But right now, it is time. Like, Jadeveon Clowney said it best. He goes, yeah, we're great on paper.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. But we're not great on the football field, and that's what matters the most.
No, it's tough. It's tough to drop to 2-3, and you feel like you should be at the very worst 4-1, but you can not talk yourself into 5-0. But in the end, you are what your record says you are, and it's 2-3, and it's a big road to hoe here coming forward.
But I'm not. The thing about it is, we talked about how our schedule is so tough, and it is. But like, we can score on anybody.
Here's the deal,
no
though,
doubt
dude.
in my mind.
This is the problem. It's what I said. Yes, you're not. No one is going to run us out of a building. We're too good.
But
we run it too well.
We need to find clutch meter.
But
Wherever
clutch ain't there.
Clutch fountain, go get it. Find it.
We're opposite.
Drink.
We're opposite of clutch, anti-clutch, and so that's what leads to, you feel in the way that you feel, and why it feels like it's so insurmountable, to be 2-3 and look at what you're looking at. But no, there's nobody on the schedule that's going to run us out of the building. It's not happening. We run it too well. The offensive line's too good. Nick Chubb's too good. Kareem Hunt's too good. Jacoby Brissett's playing too good. Not going to happen. And we're good in the red zone, to your point, in terms of keeping them out of 7s and into 3s. But we're not clutch. And I don't know how you coach that. I don't know if that's give a damn. I don't know what that is, but we're not. When it comes to the biggest moments, we fail.
We're not clutch. We're not disciplined, and we're not about the details.
Mm-mm.
And I've said that for weeks now.
Yeah.
So the discipline, how many personal fouls do we have? 4?
Yeah.
4 15-yard penalties to an offense that needs no help whatsoever. Mm-hmm. Now, the Grant Delpit one, what's he supposed to do? He was already going to tackle him when he slid at the last second. It was kind of a half slide at best.
Right. Yeah.
That was a tough call. But we had 3 15-yarders that we can't be having.
No.
we've got to maintain our composure. John Johnson certainly knows that. And, yeah, that looked like a devastating crackback block from Austin Eckler on Jacob Phillips that should have been flagged. It was not. But we can't give them 15 more yards.
No.
Because they put them right down there and they run it in. We got to find ways to be clutch. We have got to find ways to just dig deep and just not accept losing, not tolerate losing. We've got to – the fire's got to be lit. And if it's not now, this season could get away from this team really quickly, which would be a shame because of what we've talked about, the way the offense has performed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this was a defense that was supposed to carry an offense.
It's the other way.
The offense is carrying big, and it's not. It's just running out of a little steam in the end here in a couple times. Cade makes a field goal, though. We win the game.
You're asking the offense to play perfect, and it almost has.
Yeah, darn near.
Which is something nobody out there would have asked of it in August.
And for people that are upset about the fourth down call when we got Jacoby Brissett. I dropped an Ed Rooney reference on the broadcast yesterday 9 times. Yes, he has snuck 9 for 9 this year. That we ran a play. When Joe Thomas comes on for the Joe Thomas Hour, the half hour number 2, he will tell you why that was not only a good play call and why it should have been a touchdown. We missed a block again in a clutch moment with one of our best players, just as we did at the end against Atlanta. One of our best players, Joel Bitonio, got beat for the sack by Grady Jarrett. The Browns, it's the little things, man. Sound like Dan Campbell. It's the little things. And that's what's biting us because we deserve to be better than we are. The fans, you deserve for this football team's record to be better than it is because these losses are, in some ways, stupefying.
Mm-hmm.
And
Brandon Staley had one of the most boneheaded 4th and short calls I've ever seen in the history of my life. He gave you the game.
Gave us the game.
4th and pretty much 2. It's 1.75 or whatever. It's basically 2. He ran a slant. MJ Emerson's all over it, breaks it up. I mean, we have no timeouts. There's a minute 14. If he punts it deep, you get look what you're asking, and instead he gives it to you there, and you don't take advantage of it. And that let him off the hook, and it put us on the hook.
Now, the play calling in that drive, that I didn't love.
Mm-hmm.
You get the first down to Amari Cooper. You get up to the line, and I said on the broadcast, I said, we can still run it here. And in my mind, I'm thinking there's 5 in the box, 4 linemen and 1 linebacker. Inside zone, just a quick little inside handoff out of the shotgun.
So you can get right back on the line. You can't spread out.
2 things. 1, you're probably going to get 5 to 6 yards out of that would be my guess. 2, you're exactly right. The play is going to stop right where it started. So you're going to be able to get right back on the ball.
Take up 5 steps and
you're snapping it again. You run it wide, you lose yards.
Mm-hmm.
You're not losing yards on an inside.
No, you're not.
And it took a lot of time. And then second down would have been the play in my mind. All right, let's try to get 8 or so and run a play for that purpose. Get to whatever hash Cade wants it to be on.
Mm-hmm.
Spike it. Let it come down, spike it, and then we can kick the field goal. Because once you throw a bomb on second, and if you're going to throw it, fine. One-on-one, Donovan Peoples-Jones caught it. By the way, he catches everything.
He does catch everything, yeah.
With a high degree of difficulty.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like for whatever reason, a lot of times when the ball's thrown to him, he's got to make an insane catch, which he does. But you got to throw that ball in bounds. It's got to be in bounds. You got to give him a chance to catch the football in bounds.
Right, but what those two do is it takes the middle of the field out on third down.
Third down, the middle
of
the
the
field's
out.
out.
Third down, there's 20 seconds left, and you're cooked.
Right, because you can't spike it.
No,
because it's
third
down.
Run out a field goal unit. It's impossible.
Right, so what you do is you go to the sideline. Now, had he waited a beat longer, and I understand why he wanted to get rid of it, a sack is game over.
Yeah.
He's also going to err being wide as opposed to inside there, so that's either a completion or incomplete, no chance for a game-ending pick. But if he'd waited a beat longer, oh, man, Amari Cooper was wide open about 15 yards down the field.
Yeah.
It's those little things, those details, and, of course, it's so hard for Jacoby. He didn't see the guy when he threw the pick. He still could have run it. We could have probably run out the clock and had the game right there. It's just so frustrating the way that's come down to it. But, look, even with all of that, we didn't do this, we didn't do that, we didn't do this. Cade York makes a field goal.
1.
We win the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's why he's here. And unfortunately, it is a binary business when you are at that position. Good, not good. Win, loss. All on his foot. And he's given us 1. He's taken away 1. And the extra point at the Jets, certainly culpable in that outcome.
Yep. Lots to unpack here. Hey, Browns fans, skip the chore of laundry. Enjoy life, not laundry. Tide Cleaners offering 30% off dry cleaning for the entire month of October. Be entered to win 4 VIP Browns tickets to an upcoming home game. Just mention the promo code Browns. Visit TideCleaners.com to find the closest location to you. Some exclusions may apply. Lots more to unpack on this one. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Bally Bet on 850 ESPN Cleveland. The Bath Authority gives you that bathroom of your dreams. You transform your current bath into a custom bath situation. A little bit of a spa feel in there for you. They'll do it for you about a day. The Bath Authority makes it a reality for you at a fraction of the cost of the competitors. The Bath Authority is Cleveland's premier bath and shower remodeler. They are expert and factory-trained installers. You give them a call now, you get $500 off your next custom bath or shower remodel. That number is 216-220-8399 or go to thebathauthority.com. It's where affordability meets quality. The largest selection of bath projects, all made in the United States. Change your bathroom from outdated to outstanding. Superior products with expert installers at thebathauthority.com, 216-220-8399. Gibby wants to know, who shouldn't we be angry with today? We kind of led the show with Nick Chubb, but nothing to see here. There's a lot to like. You mentioned the defensive players. I think that's what makes it, for me, this is what makes it so troubling and painful, because it's not like this is stunning incompetence. In fact, we are very, very competent at a great many things, including almost everything offensively.
Everything.
We're very, very competent and actually among the best in the league at a lot of it. It's clutch. It's some special teams gaffes, and it's a defense that does not know what it that is unable to fix what it's bad at on the fly.
Up too many big plays. You're right. Unable to make adjustments in the game to stop the bleeding. But who are we not mad? Who are you angry with? You can't be mad at the offense at all.
None of it.
And I know that there are people you can maybe question a call here or there, but for the most part, Kevin Stefanski called a flawless game. He did a tremendous job putting our offense in position to succeed. We put up points. We moved the football. I mean, folks, you're talking about a team.
You threw for 230 and ran for 213. You averaged 7 yards a carry on 31 carries. You averaged 21 to 34 at quarterback. I mean, I don't know what more you could expect out of this situation.
You had 27 first downs and faced 10 third downs. Think about that. 17 times you got a first down without even getting to third down on first or second down. You averaged 7 yards a play. You put up 443 yards of offense. Okay? That's winning football. Without question, that's winning football. You were 3 of 4 turning red zone trips into touchdowns. 2 of 2 on goal to go. They were 2 of 4 on goal to go. 2 of 4. We were 2 of 2.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll say it. The entire offensive line, excellent again. Pass catchers, Njoku, Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, all excellent. Shout out to David Bell. Not going to show up in the stat sheet, but on Jacoby Brissett's big scramble for a first down, David Bell with a great block down the field. Great block down the field to help spring him there. Obviously, Nick Chubb, sublime, the best. I'll be honest. I know we're keeping him fresh, but I feel like he's got to be at 20 touches a game, period. End of story.
Yeah, I was thinking about that yesterday. This was I thought before this season, I know it would be difficult because of Kareem, but I did wonder if this was an 1,800-yard Nick Chubb type year is what would be required. And I think that we need to be certainly are. I do think with Chubb, like last series, I know that Kareem's a better pass blocker, but if you're going to run it, then I want 24. And I acknowledge how great Kareem is. I'm not pretending he's not.
I want him in there on the fourth down play.
Yeah, I want him in there always. He's just such a threat. He's such a one-cut go and then can make you miss in the hole. He's shifty. He's the best running back in football, and he just should be on the field in the fourth quarter when drives and the games are on the line.
Absolutely. And then going back, like I said, Njoku, 3 straight games over 70 yards, 6 for 88 on 6 targets, caught every target. Big catch down near the goal line. He made big catches on the sideline.
He looks like what they paid him to be.
Yes, he looks like a legit tight end. Jacoby, again, 21 of 34, 230, the touchdown, operated this offense effectively. By the way, wasn't sacked once in this game. Jacoby Brissett, no sacks. We were credited with a sack on the play when Herbert ran out of bounds for a 1-yard loss. I think Jacob Phillips was actually credited with the sack.
One up?
He got as the nearest defender. But look, offensively, nothing to complain about. Defensively, up front, I'll start up front. No issues with what I saw from Jadeveon Clowney yesterday. None whatsoever. I thought he was all over the place. Team high 5 quarterback pressures. He was dominant in the run game. He had 4 stops, tackles for losses. He was all over the field. And I thought that he was the one guy that it felt like played the run the best. I thought he was excellent. Miles didn't have the sacks. He didn't have the gaudy numbers. Still, he was so close so many times to Justin Herbert, and his pressure forced an incompletion on what should have been a touchdown to Josh Palmer where they had to settle for a field goal on one of those. That's it up front. Your defensive tackles have got to be better. They've got to be better. Alex Wright was supposed to be brought along slowly. He's been thrust into a fire that I don't know that he's totally ready for at this point. Perrion, same thing. Perrion flashes great plays, but then will be completely wildly out of his gap the next.
Yeah, on one of those big gashers, he got blocked into Jacob Phillips like 7 yards
down the field.
Yeah.
Yes. Linebacking play was not good at all. Too many missed tackles. Our tackling was poor. Go to the secondary, though, again. MJ Emerson, Greg Newsome, both of them I thought played their hearts out, and I thought both played very, very well. Grant was – a lot of people have been giving Grant a rough time, but I thought he actually had a pretty good game when you watched it back. But, again, not good enough. Not any impact plays. Yes, you could say the stop on 4th down by MJ Emerson, impact play. Greg Newsome chasing down Austin Eckler, turning a touchdown into 3, impact play. And we were good down there near the goal line. They were 2 of 5 in the red zone, 2 of 4 goal to go. That's good. But in between, not good. Not good enough. Too much discombobulation, too much confusion, poor tackling. Again, just not – it was not good enough. And you lost another game that you should have won. The Chargers hadn't won back-to-back games on the road, by the way, since 2018. They tried to give it to you. If the converse had happened, if that was a Browns team that went for it at their own 45 in that situation and didn't get it, it's 100% that we're losing.
There's no question.
Like 100%.
There's no question. Yeah. There's just bad I don't know. I don't know how to break the bad mojo thing. I don't know how you make them clutch. It's also a Chargers team that doesn't – I mean, there's no Bosa. There was no Keenan Allen in the game for them. You had to take advantage of this. And you get it gifted because of the Brandon Staley play call to go for it on fourth down. It's right there for you. You went from, oh, God, they're playing out the string to, oh, my goodness, we can win this thing.
We're going to win this thing.
Right. Go kick a field goal and you're done and it's good.
Yeah.
And instead it doesn't happen. And, I don't know. It's going to take – it feels like something has to change from a defensive personnel standpoint, and that's how you get the Deion Jones acquisition is that they all acknowledge that too. By the way, don't lose – you think about how tirelessly people in this organization at the top are working to fix things. Like, think about the fact that AB is making a trade on a Sunday afternoon.
After that game,
saying, I've got to find a solution here to give these guys a better chance to succeed because we're not doing it right now. And so that was amazing to me that deal was pulled off before it was at the beginning of the Sunday night.
My guess is it had to be talked about when we were in Atlanta or once Anthony Walker went down. It was something that started to be a discussion, and they were able to said, okay, pull the trigger. We got to get this done. There aren't any magical solutions out there. Defensive tackle, I know people want there to be, and I know they want it to be in Ndamukong Suh, but Ndamukong Suh's not on anybody's roster, either by his own choosing or the league's choosing. I don't know what it is.
I said that last week. Like, there's this notion that you just go say, hey, you have to sign with us. He's got to want to play football, and he might not.
And he might.
He might not want to play here either. He might want to wait until there's a better situation at the end of the year. Like if Dallas says, hey, would you like to join us in week 10, and they're somehow above water still at that point. Yeah, sure, I'll go play for the Cowboys and live in Texas and have no state tax and play on a team that maybe can make some noise. I mean, that's the right that he has. This notion that, like, you just give people money and they have to go get this guy. You can't just do that. This isn't Madden, for crying out loud.
No, and even further to go and you look at, him, last year was not the best year that he's had in the league. So it's not like he is an ascending asset at this point. Is he better than what we have?
He's probably better than what we have.
Probably.
But he's still going to want to be here. A couple of other additional roster moves made today. Miller Forrestall, Elijah Nkansa, both waived from injured reserve, and then Josh Rosen released from the practice squad as well. So those are some other additional things. What else as this week goes on, what else could be done?
People executing their jobs. The fact that we don't understand where to be before snaps, to me, is stunning. I will give some credit. I know this, and certainly on the back end, they were well prepared for this. And you notice this, how many times did the Chargers go quick and they ran a play-action shot play? 6, they hit none of them. And that's how they were abusing people this year. That's their go-to. The Browns were prepared for it. They were on it, and they took care of it. So some of the things were good. But up front, run fits, you've got it. Whatever your gap is, you've got to be in that gap.
Yeah.
We're too often not in the right places. We're too often misaligned. And that's one thing if it's a new defense and new players, right? Mm-hmm. Third year in this defense.
Yep.
For a lot of these players. Can't be having that. You can't be having that. And so, I don't know. And I don't know if you need to, start at some point, right? You have to ask yourself, do I put a less talented individual who I know will do their assignment on the field? Because instead of getting gashed for a 70-yard run, maybe they'll get 6 instead of 5. But they're not going to get 70.
No. I think all's on the table at this point after the last two performances, especially what we gave up on the ground. OBM, the official printer partner of your Cleveland Browns. When you depend on the Browns to win, you can always depend on OBM. They can tackle any size office. Call 216-485-2000 or visit ohiobusinessmachines.com. Kevin Stefanski's press conference up next. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Browns fans, catch the Kevin Stefanski Show with Z and Gerard Thursday night from 7 to 8 at Grayton Road Tavern. Meet Browns quarterback Josh Dobbs and check out Thursday Night Football as the guys get you ready for Sunday's game against the Patriots. And now let's go to the podium, Kevin Stefanski's presser.
Okay, injury front, like I mentioned.
You guys are down.
Is in the concussion protocol. You know, the game, like we mentioned, it was very frustrating. You know, we want to go in there and get a win, and we didn't. So obviously credit to them that they beat us. But we got to look at the areas that we beat ourselves as well. I think there were just too many examples, offense, defense, special teams, players, coaches, where we just beat ourselves. So that's really the focus of today is looking at ways that we can get better. Things that need to be fixed, we got to fix them. And that's what we're going to focus on. And then we got another AFC opponent coming in next week, Sunday, to our place, 2-3 football team, just like us. So like I mentioned, we got to get to fixing these things and then be ready to get to work on Wednesday. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Hey, Kevin, you guys acquired Deion Jones from Atlanta. I know he's been hurt earlier this year. Is he ready to go? And what can he do to help you?
Yeah, we'll see on Tom. He gets in tomorrow, obviously, and we'll put our eyes on him and that type of thing. But just felt like we could add a veteran linebacker to the group and thought it was the right thing to do.
How do you fix this run defense?
Yeah, you know, obviously gave up 238 yards rushing. So it's never one thing. It can't be one player. It can't be one scheme. Can't be one position. It's everybody. So we got to own it and we got to fix it. We got to make sure that we look at everything. There's nothing that you can't look at. We got to be very intentional about that because, you know, until you stop it, teams are going to always continue to do that.
Yeah. Hey, Kevin, could you go through the day-to-day plan with Watson now that he's been allowed back inside the building there?
Yeah, I think, you know, haven't been able, just saw Deshaun this morning for the first time. So we'll work through what we're allowed to do with him for the foreseeable future, which I believe is he's in the meeting rooms with our guys and he's in there now with the guys, which is great for him and us to have him back with his teammates. And then I know he can't be out on the field and working out just yet with the guys. So we'll just take that one day by day.
Any impression of the work he did football, non-football wise while he was gone?
Yeah, he's in a good spot. You know, I think he worked real hard, was in town, working locally, making sure that he was staying on top of it physically. So now he's just got to catch up a little bit in the meeting room.
Kevin, on run defense, is there any growing concern that you guys are just too light at the linebacker position and with the 3 safety look, and the teams have finally identified that as a point of attack?
Yeah, I think I understand the question, Tony. I do believe in run defense. A lot of it is discipline, running the ball, tackling well. It's our jobs to put the guys in position to make plays. That's obvious. So schematically, we got to make sure they're in position, and then we got to tackle, which we just didn't do a good enough job yesterday.
Okay, and on the other side of the ball, Brissett's 3 interceptions have all come when you're trying to get in position to win a game. Is it becoming indecent? You talk about putting the players in the right position for them to succeed. Is it becoming difficult the way your defense is playing to keep Brissett out of those situations?
You know, I have a lot of faith in Jacoby, Tony. I think he's playing well, and that was a bad play. He knows that. He's beating himself up about that. But he's making some big plays in these games, both with his arm, with his feet.
Come back
to, you know, give ourselves a chance to go score points or whatever it is. So I think
back in 5.
Those moments again might be this week, might be the following week, and I expect him to come through.
You're up.
You know, it's a shame because he's been so good. He's been superb. Like 98% of the time, Jacoby Brissett has been superb, and he's not the reason that the 3 losses are on the board. It's just that the picks that he threw were in at brutal spots.
Obviously,
no,
yeah, they were in brutal spots, obviously late in the games, but he's done things with not just his arm, with his leg as well that I think has been incredibly impressive. I thought he was sacked on that play.
Yeah,
Watching it in the booth, I thought he was sacked, and the next thing I know, he's out there running and picks up 18, 20 yards for that first down. He's been phenomenal. He's done enough for this team to be 5-0. He is more than carried his own weight. More than carried his own weight. The ball has been precise. He's missed a few throws here and there, of course. But, again, folks, we're doing this with our backup quarterback. Deshaun Watson back in the building today. He can be in meetings. He can do all of that. He just can't practice with the team for a couple more weeks. But he's our backup quarterback. And he's playing as one of the certainly top half of the league quarterbacks in the NFL right now, if not, top 12, top 10, depending on various metrics. And watching him, I mean, he's been so efficient.
He's 6th in the league in QBR.
Okay, that's winning football.
Mm-hmm.
And we're a losing team.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
Yeah.
He's been excellent. Amari's been great. Njoku's been great. Donovan Peoples-Jones has been great. I still think we are missing, because Anthony Schwartz is not a factor.
No.
We're missing a vertical threat in this offense.
Listen, you go back to camp and you think about – now, certainly we would have thought that Anthony Walker Jr. would be here. No one could have foreseen an injury, like that to him. But if you go to the questions that you had in camp, it was defensive tackle, and I said over and over again, speed receiver. Like, those are the things that right now we don't have.
Nope.
We are not good at defensive tackle, and we're not good at someone who can take the top off of anything. And despite that, offensively, you're scoring plenty of points to be able to win these games, and frankly should.
Even with a compressed field. It compresses what you're able to do. And
imagine what will happen when you have an ability to stretch the entire field and Nick Chubb gets to play in that type of offense, what it'll look like.
That's the thing. Like, we could be scoring 35 a game once Deshaun Watson takes over.
You'd be in a situation, you're in the situation Buffalo's in, the situation the Chiefs are in, where you just bury people.
Yep, and that's what we have not been able to do, unfortunately, and I think that's what this Browns team needs to be able to do.
I mean, you've scored 26, 30, 29, 20, and 28. That's enough. That's enough.
It's more than enough.
And you could have more
than enough.
You could have a loss to the Jets, but then you had to get these two. And that's what didn't happen. Everything that could go wrong did. And honestly, based on what we've seen from Cade York since the opener, I almost feel fortunate to win that one, because that's a 58-yarder.
Of course. That's the craziest part of all of this. We had an opportunity to put away all 5 of these games in comfortable fashion. Now, the Chargers, probably tough to put away, right?
Yeah, they're really good.
But we saw the way that they folded like a house of cards against the Jags when the Jags stuck it to them and didn't let them get back in the game. We had a chance to do it. We were up 14-0. Then we were up 14-3 and got the ball back. You go up 21-3 right there, okay, that could be an interesting scenario for them to try to deal with flying across the country. But we did not do that. But we're doing enough. And I think that the way in which we are losing is so painful for everybody, because we know this shouldn't be happening. I mean, one area of special teams, by the way, here's somebody else he shouldn't be mad at. Corey Bojorquez has been unreal.
He's been great.
His directional punting invokes the great Cole. We haven't seen directional punting with this organization since the great Cole hit the peak of his powers. But he's hit it from 61 yards down to their 1 yard line. And what did we let him do? 99 yards. It's just right there. That's got to be – most teams you're thinking, let's get a safety. Let's get a pick 6. That's where pick 6 happens. Nothing. We're not generating any turnovers at all.
No.
Right? We didn't have a turnover against the Falcons, a takeaway. We didn't have a takeaway in this one.
Denzel had a pick against – it wasn't the Falcons.
Oh, yeah, it was the Falcons. He did.
Falcons,
he had a pick against the Falcons,
yeah.
But we lost the turnover battle 2-1.
Yeah.
We lose the turnover battle here 1-0.
We only had 1 sack. Sacks, interceptions, fumbles, 1.
Which was
iffy.
Generous.
Really?
Yeah.
Goose egg, yeah.
Should have been a donut. So we just haven't been doing what we need to do defensively. And that's really where it goes back to. Cade York, you've got to make those kicks. You invested a 4th-round pick in a kicker. You got to make them.
And he's the only kicker drafted.
And you got to make those kicks.
Mm-hmm. Make one of them.
He's never missed 2 in a game in his life.
Yeah. Well, and then you worry, right? Because kickers are like pitchers.
Golfers.
They're like golfers. It becomes mental. Do you see it? Are you questioning everything, what you're doing?
Sure.
So that's a big sense of worry there. One of the things that we spent, quite a bit of in the terms of the stuff that we played from Coach, there was more to it, but one of the things that we centered on quite a bit there was Watson's return. So Deshaun Watson is in the building, as you alluded to. He's in the building this week. He will be in this scenario for what amounts to 4 weeks, and then he'll be able to begin practicing, and then he'll be practicing for 4 weeks before he plays.
Yep.
So that's where you're at on this. Remember, he does not come back until the game against Houston. So in terms of the games remaining, Patriots this week, at Ravens, Bengals here, at Miami, at the Bills, and then the Bucs. And the crazy thing about all of this, with the exception to the Bills because they are a machine, but with the exception to them, none of these look as insurmountable as they did before the season. They really don't. I don't know if you watched the Bengals game last night. They can't throw the ball down the field.
No. And by the way, I said this again. It was my hot take watching them. T. Higgins is as important to them, if not more, it feels like, than Jamar Chase right now.
Right now he is, because Zach Taylor's not putting them in a good position week in and week out, and so there's not much imagination in the offense.
Mixon can't do anything.
Mixon can't get going. Yesterday was his best game of the season. I think he had 78 yards.
Yep.
Lamar and the Ravens, if we can't stop the run, that's going to be a problem. This Patriots team, who knows who the quarterback's going to be?
Doesn't matter. It's going to be Zappy, I'm
It's
sure.
going to be Stevenson just –
Ramondre Stevenson was unbelievable against the Lions.
Just going to run it right at you. How about them? They can't play an ounce of offense all of a sudden?
The Lions scoring team
score 40 points a week, and all of a sudden they go to Big Bad New England and they get shut out. The Dolphins.
So do you think that's –
I don't know what to make of it.
Yeah, that's wild.
I just think the league makes no damn sense.
Let me tell you something. I said it before. We caught the Jets early in their development, and that was a good time for us to get that win. They're not a bad team, and Breece Hall is a stud.
He is. Yeah, I remember he was very good at Iowa State. The one thing with the Dolphins, though, is Bridgewater is out after the first play.
Yeah.
So do you know what happened on that? Somebody spotted it. Like, he passed concussion protocol. They wouldn't let him back in the game. But somebody spotted it, and because of the Tua stuff, he was down. So he played one play.
Should it even have been and they had Skylar Thompson come in?
I don't even know who that guy is.
Me neither.
Never heard of him.
Me neither.
So he comes
in. And they made it kind of competitive.
Yeah, they ended up towards it at the end. The Bills just steamrolled Pittsburgh. I mean, that was an
Gabe
abomination.
Davis, baby. Let's go.
And the Bucs aren't right.
No, that's why I'm saying our schedule
is not
as daunting.
We're not going to get run by anybody except, Buffalo's would be tough. But everybody else you can go toe-to-toe with.
Yes.
You just have to figure out a way to close
100%.
games. It's really that simple. And now with Watson back in here, you get him in the building, and then for a month, and then he practices for a month, and then hopefully he's ready to go. And all that you hope for here, as you sit at 2-3, trying to make sense of it, is that by the time December 4th rolls around, it's meaningful.
That's all.
That's all you want. You just want meaningful. Is it too much to ask for those games to be ones where perhaps there's some semblance of a hope of a playoff chance? The good news is, I think in the AFC at least, I think it will be, because no one's running away with this thing.
No.
Except for the teams at the top. Buffalo and Kansas City are going to separate. I think that's a lot. Kansas City gets the Raiders. That feels like it. But everybody else in this side has flaws. I cannot believe I was ready to put the Titans away. They've won 3 in a row. Don't bury them.
Yeah.
Not that their win was that impressive. They beat Washington, but you get the point. The separation is at the very top, and it's Kansas City and the Chargers, and everybody else I think is going to be hanging out. It's not good in Cincinnati either, and they have their full complement of players. You're right. Higgins was down yesterday, but he was injured.
By the way, not great for fantasy folks.
No. Probably survived that though, I think. So that's where you stand. Be part of one of the most passionate fan bases in the NFL. Join the Browns season ticket member waitlist today. The best chance of securing tickets for all home games in future seasons. Don't miss out. Go to clevelandbrowns.com/tickets or call 440-891-5050 to reserve your spot today. Coming up next, the Hoff for the Joe Thomas Hour of the program. Thank God. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. I like tailgating touchdowns and Twisted Tea. It tastes just like real iced tea. You know why? Because it's made with real brewed tea. Cool, refreshing, 5% kick of alcohol. It's thirst down and gold. Twisted Tea, hard iced tea. Keep it twisted. You might need several of them after the way this thing finished on Sunday. Welcome in the Joe Thomas hour of the program. The Hoff joining us on the Twisted Tea hotline. Brought to you by Twisted Tea, hard iced tea, an official sponsor of your Cleveland Browns. Keep it twisted, Cleveland. This was cruel, Hoff. It was tough to do so many things right and to not be rewarded with a win because of breakdowns and misses in special teams and so forth. These are hard to swallow, buddy.
Cruel and unusual punishment have been the Browns games this year. The way that they've found ways to lose in spite of playing some really, really good football. And I think the most disappointing thing for me is just you've got an offense playing much better than you expected, maybe going into the season, a quarterback you didn't really know a whole lot about. And I think by and large, he's surpassed expectations. You're scoring points, and you still can't win, even though you're in the situation at the end of a game where you're kicking field goals to win, and you don't do it. And I think that's the frustrating thing, is when you're exceeding expectations where they are on offense and with Jacoby Brissett, and you're still losing.
It was a frustrating one. Let's just start big picture. What were kind of your takeaways from the offensive performance, the defensive performance, and then the special teams?
Well, offense, you got to be excited about the way they continue to run the football. Over 200 yards rushing again, almost a 7-yard average, which is really kind of difficult to wrap my mind around. My entire career, we were chasing a 4-yard average, and we'd feel pretty good about ourselves when you're, 4.5, 5 yards a carry. But the way that they're running the football is just ridiculous. I thought Jacoby Brissett, other than that interception at the end, is playing good football. He found Amari Cooper, which that was a question mark coming into this game. Like, hey, is he going to be able to kind of link up again with Amari? And after sort of not really finding him at all, I mean, he was witness protection program the week before. Amari Cooper has 7 catches. He's targeted 12 times. And you can see the impact that he has when he is a big part of that game. I thought Donovan Peoples-Jones played a great game. The Chief continues to play good football. I mean, offensively, there's a lot of stuff to be really happy about. But then you pivot to the defensive side of the football. And although the breakdowns in the pass defense are not there that like they were earlier in the season, you just can't allow 238 yards rushing. You can't let the Chargers, who are not a good running team, to be able to run the football the way they have. And I think that's why Andrew Berry made the decision that he did to trade for a linebacker last night at the stadium, because he realized that our interior of our defensive line and our linebackers are just not cut out to be run stuffers right now, especially after losing Anthony Walker.
Joe, can you teach clutch?
I think you teach it as a person who's been in that moment before. I think not necessarily just in the NFL, but throughout your life, maybe being in those big moments, having that confidence, succeeding in those moments builds confidence that you're the type of player who can compete and play well in those big clutch moments. And I think when you're a young player, you question yourself a lot. Hey, am I clutch, right? Can I be clutch at the NFL level? And going out there and doing it builds that confidence that you can go do it again. And until you're in those moments, sometimes you wonder. And unfortunately for a lot of guys on this team, they have not been clutch this season.
Well, and that's the thing. Just to follow up real quickly on that.
Please.
We know this is the youngest team in the NFL. And what you worry about is that this stuff becomes habitual.
Well, we've seen
We've seen it now.
more,
three.
I've seen it more than anybody.
Yeah, but to be fair, I mean, that just from an overall talent standpoint, this roster is different than a lot of the ones the Hoff played on.
100%.
Right? I think we'd all acknowledge that. Like this team from a talent standpoint, but you just worry that this stuff starts to snowball, Joe. And that's a young team being impressionable. Like, you get used to it.
Yeah, well, that's the danger of having these moments over and over again. Was it the Buffalo Bills that were terrible in one-score games up until recently, until I think last week? And you worry about that creeping into people's mindset, right? Like, you're not good in in those clutch moments. You've lost in those moments before, and then all of a sudden you start getting into that point of a game where it's a tight ball game, it's a one-score game, you're going to need somebody to make a play down the stretch, and everyone gets tight. Rather than being loose and having confidence and excitement about the ball coming to you in that moment where you can make the play and you can be the hero, you start getting nervous, right? You get nervous that the ball is going to come to you and that you're going to be the one that blows it this week. And that negative self-talk all of a sudden kind of spills into your performance because you aren't confident in what you're doing. You're not excited about being able to seize that moment, and it definitely snowballs. And I think that's why mindset is such an important part of being a professional athlete. That's why these guys hopefully are training their brains, they're training their minds, they're doing the meditation, they do the visualization that you need so that when you are in that moment, it's not the first time you've been there because you've been there in your mind before and you are excited about being able to capture that moment. But there's definitely a fear and there's going to be certainly, hopefully, some proactive maybe mental coaching going on so that it doesn't snowball into a, oh, here we go again type clutch moment. Somebody's going to screw it up.
And unfortunately, that has been what has let this football team down too often in this season, sitting at 2-3. Hoff, just educates me, Bo, our listeners, because so much has been made about the fourth down call, and you and I have already talked about it, where many people wanted him to sneak, and I get that. And a sneak very well may have still gotten a first down because the guy's 9 for 9 on the season. That would have made him 10 for 10. But instead we ran kind of a slower developing run, kind of like with a pull there. What was the play call? What did the Chargers do? What did you think of it? And break down what it could have been and what happened.
Well, one thing I do know is that the other 31 teams in the NFL and their fans, they watch film too. And so they know how good the Browns are at sneaking it. And it's great to think that, okay, if we just sneak it every time on 4th and 1, we're going to get it. But if you're predictable in the NFL, no matter what it is, like there's a defense that stops every offensive play. And actually, in that moment, we talked about it a little bit today, the Chargers had the perfect defense called to stop the sneak because they were just like the Browns fans. They expected, here comes the sneak. So what they did is they put 4 defensive tackles in the gaps, in the A gaps and the B gaps. And on the snap, they slanted them out hard, and then they ran linebackers and safeties through the A gaps. So basically what they were trying to do, because what we've seen Jacoby and why he's so successful with the sneaks is he gets the ball and he stands back, which he learned from Brady, and he finds a gap, which is usually to the side, because typically in a sneak, everybody just kind of wedges and caves forward, and you try to push forward for, a foot or two, and then there's lots of green grass and space to the side. So Jacoby's been really good about backing up, taking a second, and then finding some space either side to the B gaps. But what the Chargers did is they realized that was going to happen, so they slanted those defensive tackles out to take away Jacoby's ability to stand back and then sneak off to the side, and then they ran linebackers and safeties through the A gaps to be able to take it away if he saw that there was that slant and try to go forward. So they called the anti-sneak play. So had we sneaked on that moment, we would have not made it. It would have been an abject failure. And then, of course, everyone would have been saying, oh, you always sneak it. They knew it was coming, so you should have run a different play, right? Well, that's what's great about being a fan is we get to say that, after the fact. But they actually had the perfect play call. They called 96 power. That's at least what I've called in the past, or 26 power. It was your guard pull, your fullback lead. You're running basically from A gap out, and the running back is coming downhill. He's just trying to find the first hole, and he's trying to get through it. And the reason it's a great play in that situation is because the front side are taught to down block a gap. And any type of stunt or blitz or run through that they run, you're able to wad it up because you've got these 3 blockers on the front side that are all down blocking and basically caving that line in, and then the running back runs off the tight end or the tackles, but to the outside where there's a little bit of green grass. And it's one of the most classic short yardage plays in NFL history because it accounts for any run-throughs, any blitzes. It basically picks anything up, and as long as you don't have a catastrophic technique or assignment error on the front side, it's going to get blocked, and your running back's going to have a chance to make a yard. However, our right guard, who's an all-pro, and I love him very much, he whiffed. And so the defensive tackle that's now supposed to be blocked by the right guard, is running completely free in the backfield. Now, that's not a good look for anybody. And as good as Kareem Hunt is, when you've got a defensive tackle that's 4 yards into your backfield unblocked on that play, you have no chance. Had we made that block, and if you pause it at that moment when Kareem is about to get tackled by the defensive tackle, there's an alley that's about 4 yards wide that goes from the line of scrimmage all the way into the end zone that he may not have even gotten touched running into the end zone in that moment. So I understand the frustration from a fan standpoint when you're 8 for 8 on QB sneaks and you don't sneak it and then you don't get it. It's really easy for me as a fan to say that was a terrible call. You should have snuck it. But if you go back and watch the tape, it was actually the perfect call for the defense that the Chargers were running because they were trying to take away your sneak, and had it been blocked the way it was supposed to, it probably would have been a touchdown.
And you bet on Wyatt Teller every time.
Of course. And last week you would have bet on Joel Bitonio one-on-one.
Yeah.
Every time.
That's the maddening part.
That's
You're doing so much of the big stuff right, Joe. You're missing the little stuff. They're happening at the most critical times. Z.
Yeah, and I'll admit I was wrong as I kind of assessed that play. Obviously, I wasn't able to watch like the all 22 of it. I got to watch it as it happened from the booth. And my issue, Joe, was while it is, as you said, a perfect play call when you watch it back and you realize, man, if Wyatt just blocks Covington, he probably scores a touchdown. It still is a slow developing play for a 1 yard gain. Do you agree with that?
That's true. I mean, yeah, it is. Like, I would say that you could make that argument. Now,
but
like I said earlier, I totally understand what you're saying in that moment because it is slow developing. But the reason it's slow developing is because you want to be able to account for any of the run through, any of the stunts, any of the blitzes that you might see in that situation where the defense is thinking, hey, this is a gotta have it. Let's just try something because if it doesn't work, we'll just live for another play. But if we throw a dart against the wall and we get lucky, it's a huge moment in the game. So you could see something in that situation from an offensive standpoint that you've never seen on film. Like they could dial up a blitz that they've never even put on film because, hey, why wouldn't we? We might as well try something because our chances of stopping them are pretty slim. So we'll run something crazy. So you run a slow developing play with rules that take care of whatever they could throw at you, knowing that, hey, we've got some pretty good dudes on the front side here that are, Pro Bowlers and all pros, and they've seen just about everything. They'll be able to handle the front side. We'll wad it up, and now we got the best guard in the NFL pulling around a big wad of humanity to the outside and blocking the first thing off the tight end's butt, and now Kareem Hunt is running in the secondary. So, I mean, if you're saying, hey, we're worried about them running a defense to stop our quarterback sneak, which clearly the Browns were, and rightfully so, because that's what the Chargers were thinking, then you would either my first play call would be power, which is what they ran. But if you don't want to do that because you want something more direct, you could run like a fullback inside zone, or since we don't really have a fullback, you could run a Nick Chubb or a Kareem Hunt little inside zone, which is what the Patriots, we studied the Patriots from like 2007 to 2010 or something goofy like that. They had like 40 4th and 1s, and they converted like 39 of them. And they were running just a little off tackle inside zone play where everybody just steps with the same foot. Everybody gets on a track, picks up whoever comes to their zone, and the running back just kind of gets his shoulders facing towards the goal line, falls forward, gets a foot, gets 2 feet, whatever he needs. So I would say those are kind of my favorite short yardage plays, and I'm sure the Browns have that in their playbook. And, hey, maybe if they ran that, it possibly could have had success. But like I said, the defense that the Chargers ran where they had those 4 big guys inside, they slanted them outside. We used to call it, hey, diddle, diddle, 3 up the middle, because everybody on the inside defensive line is slanting out, and those secondary elements are all running through the A-gaps. I mean, that's not a great look against an inside zone because they just have more dudes than you do. So your only chance of stopping it is just wadding it up, and that's what power does on the front side because you got 3 guys that are down blocking. A lot of times when 3 guys are going down, you can account for 4 bodies because there's just no space for them to get through, so they kind of fall on each other. Whereas the zone stuff, you kind of got to be able to sort out a man for a man a little bit better.
It felt like, in watching it back, Hoff, that Wyatt was expecting the defensive tackles to slant into the center to try to stop the sneak, and so he almost overreached with thinking he was going down when the defensive tackle actually went out, and thus Wyatt kind of put all his weight on his left foot going left, and the defensive tackle actually went right.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's happened to every offensive lineman. If they've played long enough, you're in that moment, and it's a short yardage play. You're thinking that guy's probably going to fire ahead. And so what happens is you get a little bit out over your toes. You get a little bit overextended. You come off a little bit too hard. You're not measured right in your approach, which, if anybody knows Wyatt Teller, the personality, he's not a measured guy. He's kind of all in or all out. So it's understandable. He probably wanted to go down there and murder the guy, which I get it. But in that situation, it's a live and learn moment. Like, hey, it's more important to make the block and get a stalemate than it is to wipe him off the screen and get an attaboy in the film room on Monday morning. And so he just got a little overextended. And then once you take that first step that hard, it's really hard to redirect when your defensive lineman is slanting that hard to the outside.
In that moment, and this is just one question I had that occurred to me while this happened, is it almost better if you are in that situation to just tackle the guy from behind, because then you know at least the team will get a penalty and an opportunity to punt? Or are you hoping that Kareem is going to make something out of nothing and it's still going to work out? Or is that too quick to even think like that?
Yeah, I think it's too quick to make that analytics evaluation because, yeah, it would be nice to be able to just turn around and tackle him and then hope somehow that you can make the first down,
right?
Take the penalty and then punt. But, like, a lot of times it's going so quickly that even if you turned around and just try to tackle a guy, you're probably still getting tackled in the backfield like you saw from Kareem.
Yeah.
Like, I think even if Wyatt would have turned around and tackled him, the guy still could have tackled Kareem as he's being tackled because he's so far in the backfield.
Yeah.
Now you really have done nothing for yourself.
Right.
And the worst thing would be if you get beat, you turn around, you tackle the guy, and somehow Kareem's able to squirt out of there where
Sure.
tackling the guy didn't matter in the first place. Now you've gotten beat and you've gotten a holding penalty, and all of it wipes out what would have been a first down anyway. So I think while it's fun to talk about, I don't think that's realistic to happen in that moment.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing is we're spending most of the time because what we like talking about offense, and the reality is we make a kick and we don't give up, 10.8 yards a carry to Austin Eckler, and you're not in this spot, right, Joe? I mean, we're just getting bullied up front on the defensive side. What are you seeing? This is 2 weeks in a row. I mean, Atlanta had the 10-play, 75-yard drive against us last week that just killed us. And then, this is 238 the Chargers had.
They
Joe.
had 258 in
four
games.
I mean, they get 20 less than that in one. What is happening to our defense in the ground game?
Well, if you guys remember when we were back in training camp, we were together enjoying the heat of that tent with no fan that Gibby purposely kept from us, and we had those little bugs that were killing us. And one of the things I kept bringing up is I'm like, hey, I like our defensive ends, but I'm just concerned with our size on the inside and experience.
Yep.
We just, outside of Jordan Elliott, we just don't have any like big earth movers or guys that are just difficult to move. And I was concerned, like, hey, if teams really are just going to say, hey, screw it, we can't throw in these guys because they're so good. They're so fast at linebacker. It's hard to get outside. We're just going to put a fullback in the game and we're just going to run the ball 35, 40 times and see what happens. And that's kind of what's happened the last couple of weeks. And, I think it's really been the loss of Anthony Walker. That's been a big problem. But when I'm watching him on film, we don't have any linebackers that can come downhill fast and close a hole. So if you look at like a linebacker's responsible for a hole, if he's off the ball, now you have depth and width to that hole, right? You can imagine if there's a hole that the running back is going to try to get through, but the linebacker is able to meet the blocker at the line of scrimmage, there's no depth to that hole. There might be a little bit of width, but now he's plugging that width with his body, and then there's no depth. So there's not really a lot of space for that running back to be able to get through. But what I'm seeing a lot of is offensive linemen are meeting our linebackers 2-3 yards into our own defensive backfield and then driving them further 4 or 5 yards. So now you got a hole that's, the width of a gap between a guard and a tackle, let's say. So it's 2-3 feet wide. And then now it's 4 yards deep, there's a lot of space for those running backs to get into. And then it makes it even more difficult for the defensive linemen because now they're running down the line of scrimmage and they're trying to close that hole that shouldn't be there that is there. And then now they're getting pushed further and farther past the hole. And now when the running back cuts back, Katie bar the door. I mean, those running backs can go pretty much anywhere they want. And, it only takes 2 or 3 of those on a drive where all of a sudden now the defense is kind of worn down. They're a little bit tired because it's tough when there's 11 dudes chasing one running back. That's why defenses get more tired and worn out quicker than offenses, right? Because even when I'm blocking somebody, I block my guy 4, 5, 6 yards, and now the running back takes off. He runs 50 yards down the field. I mean, I'm going to jog down there. I'm not going to walk, but, I don't have to sprint after the ball carrier whereas everybody on defense, they're getting tired out because every single play they're having to sprint all the way to wherever the ball carrier is. So 4 or 5 plays in a row where you're giving up 6, 7, 10, 12 yards rushing, those guys are getting tired. They're getting worn down. And then where the differences in maybe physicality already was there, it becomes even greater as fatigue starts to set in.
Yeah, it really does. There's so much to unpack with this one, and so disappointing to sit here at 2-3. We'll do our one-phrase game as we do every single Reaction Monday. That's coming up next. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Rumpke Waste Recycling, family owned and operated. Whether you join them as a customer or as an employee, you'll become part of the family. Visit rumpke.com to learn more. All right, let's do one word or phrase from yesterday's loss to the Chargers? We've talked a lot about the defense. Let's skip down to some players, and I'll start with you, Z, on MJ Emerson.
I love this kid. I love this kid. He's actually was with the media while we were on the air today, and this is what he had to say, and I think this is great. He was talking about, what happened at the end of that game with them going at him on that final play, and I love the comment. I love what he has to say. So he said, rookie cornerback, if I were him, I'd probably do the same, but I had different plans. I love it. I love the way he competes. He is a dog. He is exactly what I think this team needs. He's exactly what you want in a cornerback. He wanted Mike Williams. He wanted him. He said, give me 81. I love that, Hoff. That's what, you talk about fire, you talk about passion, you talk about a competitive nature and the desire to say, have that ball come to me because I'm going to get it done, and then to do it. I love this kid.
Absolutely. He's the type of attitude that you want at every position on your team, right?
Yes.
He's the guy that believes in himself, and he wants that moment to be the biggest, and he wants his opportunity to be able to seize that moment. That's exactly what he did. I know he talked about how Mike Williams, they wanted to go to him at the end of the game. Brandon Staley, the Chargers head coach, said they liked the matchup, and that's why they decided to go for it on fourth down. But when you got a guy like MJ Emerson, who's going to say, this is my time when the moment's the biggest, I'm going to be at my best, that's exactly who you want all 11 dudes on the defense to be thinking like, because he showed up when the moment was the biggest, and I think he's got an extremely bright future for the Browns.
All right, Hoff, this one comes to you first. Nick Chubb.
You really can't say enough superlatives about the job Nick Chubb has done. And I think one of the things that is really exciting to me when I watch Nick Chubb is his ability to make just small little cuts in the hole where sometimes it's really not a play that's blocked for much, but he's able to just make a little bit of a jump cut, just a little bit to the side, and all of a sudden all the angles for the guys on defense that are trying to make a tackle, it changes like that. And then he's able to use that acceleration, the speed that he has to turn it into a big run. And I think his ability to make some of those little small moves in the hole allow him to keep himself from being waylaid by some of the bigger hits. And I think that keeps him fresh as the game goes on, and I think that's why he's so efficient in the fourth quarter and why his rushing average is so ridiculous in the second half.
Huff, I want to ask you, I want him in there on 4th and 1. I want him in there at the end of the games, especially if we're going to be running the football like we did towards the end of that one. I want him. I think we are better when he is on the field. What do you think of that? Kareem is excellent. Excellent. Not taking anything away from Kareem Hunt, but he's not Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb is the best running back in football.
He's one of one.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I think that's one of the things that I think Coach Stefanski will probably say that he regrets. The 4th and 1. I love Kareem Hunt. Like he said, he's a great player. He's one of the best running backs in the NFL. But I think Nick Chubb can do things that Kareem Hunt can't. He can make guys miss, I think, in a way that is rare in the NFL. And he's got that ability to accelerate from almost being tackled, being dead stopped, to being at full speed that probably nobody else in the NFL has. And so I think you're going to probably see him a little bit more in those critical moments, because that's definitely one of the, I think, fair criticisms of this offense so far is that in some of those moments in the game where you've got only Kareem in there because Nick is out for whatever reason, I think you need to have Nick Chubb in the game because he's just that much of a difference maker.
All right, Z, this one comes to you, Cade York.
Not good enough. And I feel badly for the young man. It's a lot to put on his shoulders, but this is the NFL. You were drafted in the 4th round. You've got to make those kicks, period. It is binary, as I said earlier, and you are, listen, 60, 70,000 live, millions around the world are riding on you, who are being compensated very well to kick a football between the uprights, to do it like Justin Tucker does. Now, I'm not saying you're going to be that good.
No.
But you look at what Evan McPherson did for the Cincinnati Bengals last year on their ride to the Super Bowl, perfect in the playoffs, game winner after game winner. I'm sorry, that's the expectation. That's what we need, and we can't have you miss 2 kicks, extra points, he's not going to be perfect. Nobody's
No.
flawless. But in those moments, that's where you got to be clutch meter. You got to be the guy. Listen, here's something everybody can relate to. Beer pong. You got to be the guy that wants the ball when there's one cup left because you're going to bury them.
Yeah, we thought he had that in camp. He had it in camp. He had it in Carolina. Something's not right there coming off the foot off.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you guys. You can't expect perfection, but misses need to be few and far between in today's NFL with the way the fields are in perfect condition, the way that we're so good at holding the football, the way that these footballs are so perfectly manicured. I mean, the environment is just about perfect every time a kicker's back there to kick, to deal with weather from time to time. But that was not the case this weekend. And you need to be able to make way more kicks than you miss. And like Z said, occasionally you're going to miss one, but you can't have a couple in a game because it's just too important. That's why you draft a kicker in the fourth round. That's why these kickers like Justin Tucker make the money that they make, because they're that important. You win and lose games based on kicks going through the uprights. And, you hope it's just a little temporary blip on the radar and that it doesn't become something that gets into your head, because kicking is as much a mental game as golf or any of those other sports where you need to believe in yourself, because the moment you don't, that's all of a sudden the moment your mind is telling your body subconsciously to get tight and to do things that it shouldn't because of the rhythm of a kick and how important that is. If you get that screwed up, then you got big problems.
Yeah, you certainly do. We'll finish on this one. We had 4 unsportsmanlike conduct penalties yesterday, Hoff.
Far too undisciplined. Those are penalties that are never excusable. A lot of times they come back to haunt you, and it's just a matter of having the appropriate discipline and keeping the hierarchy of what's important correct in your mind. You are trying to win the game. On Sundays at 1 o'clock at First Energy Stadium, there's nothing more important in the world for that 3 hours and 15 minutes than winning the game. There's no personal vendettas. There's no revenge. There's no T-shirts. There's no foolishness. You need to keep the main thing. And if getting a penalty because you're undisciplined or you lack the mental toughness to be able to just suck it up and deal with it during the next snap, then that's a problem. And I'm sorry, I don't have problems for people that put themselves above the team by getting all sorts of personal fouls and unsportsmanlike conduct type penalties.
Agreed. It's the details. It's being disciplined.
in the
It's
details
taking
with
care
this
of your
team.
business. It's giving 60 yards to an offense that doesn't need it. They put up 465 on their own.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to give them any 65 for free or 60 for free. Yeah. We got the theme here is we must clean it up. We must be assignment sound, which that's the thing that drives me nuts right now. Missing tackling, missed tackles, and then we're not even lined up right. Like, this is the third year in this defense, and I said this earlier, and this I actually want to get your thought on real quick. Anthony Walker Jr.'s loss was not talked about enough. It was a massive one, not for just how he was playing, but for his veteran leadership and his understanding of what teams are trying to do to the Browns. And I know for a fact that he would talk to the other linebackers, or that there was a safety there with him, and tell them what was going on, what was going to happen, what they needed to do. When you lose a guy like that, and I think we've seen a little bit of chaos, I think is a fair way to say it, at the second level of this defense. How big is that, and is that similar to the center on the offensive line? If you go from somebody who absolutely knows what's going on and gets everybody exactly where they need to be in a blocking scheme versus somebody who maybe doesn't know, and you had other guys, it feels like, who were relying somewhat on Anthony Walker's expertise and that he was making them better, and that was just wiped out. And you look at what's happened in the performances of the guys around him since he has left, and you look at the performance of our defense, especially against the run since he's left, I mean, it's astronomical.
Z, it's worse than the center. He's the quarterback. I mean, he is legitimately the guy that is the communication between the defensive line and the secondary behind him. He's the one that is in charge of all the checks. So for people that don't understand, like, when a defensive call comes in, they're not just running a defense and closing their eyes. Like what they're doing is they get a call. Like let's say it's AFC, just pulling one from when I was playing. AFC means all front and coverage. So basically, if the offense gets into 21 personnel and their strength is to the left, he calls a defense based on where the strength is and what the personnel is.
Yep.
Now all of a sudden the tight end steps off the ball and goes in motion, and now they're changing the strength or changing what the formation is. He's changing the defense in real time based on what the call came in from the defensive coordinator. So his ability to change the defense to now having to communicate to the guys behind in case there's a coverage change and the defensive line in front in case they need to shift based on where the new defense is going to line up. Like that's all happening in real time. So he is almost even beyond the quarterback of the defense because he is the defensive coordinator of the defense when he's out there. He's changing the plays based on what the offense is seeing. And like when I played with DeQuell Jackson, who had a lot of experience, like the defensive coordinators would even give him more responsibility than that, where he could completely check out of something if he saw something from the offense based on his film study, or he heard some of the calls from the offensive lineman, or he heard the quarterback making a check or doing something that he'd heard or seen on film from before, and he thought he could take advantage of it. He could change the entire defense just at the drop of a hat like that. And so when you got a guy like Anthony Walker who goes out, I mean, the loss certainly has not been talked about enough because from a performance standpoint, but from a getting everybody on the same page and making sure that you're in the right defense for what the offense is doing standpoint, like I think that's almost the bigger loss with Anthony Walker.
Certainly not an easy one you're ever going to get over. Hopefully the acquisition earlier today helps a little bit with that, with Deion Jones coming in. We'll see as that goes along. Browns fans can win big with Digital Scratch-Off Game, brought to you by the Ohio Lottery and on ClevelandBrowns.com and Browns social channels. Fans can play once per day throughout the regular season by digitally scratching off a virtual card for chances to win great prizes like Team Shop gift cards, tickets to future games. For more information, log on to ClevelandBrowns.com, and you will find it there. We'll look around the league. Coming up next, you'll listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Elk and Elk serious lawyer, serious injuries. Call 1-800-ELK-OHIO for a free case review. Elk and Elk's proud partner of your Cleveland Browns. We continue with the Joe Thomas Hour of Cleveland Browns Daily. Take a brief look around the AFC, specifically the AFC North. Typically, Hoff, I am not waiting all day for Sunday night. I've had so much football by that point, but last night was an exception. I took off the afternoon games and was all in on the game between the Bengals and the Ravens last night. What did you make of that game between those two AFC North rivals?
Well, it was an interesting game when you watched it because we kind of figured with Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow there'd be maybe 600 yards passing, all sorts of offense, but the defenses did a fairly decent job limiting those quarterbacks. But my big takeaway was just the type of winner that Lamar Jackson is. And, I think Joe Burrow played pretty well down the stretch. But Lamar Jackson only had 174 yards passing, and he only had 58 yards rushing. But I thought his performance down the stretch, he just finds a way to win. And I think that's kind of what his career has been all about is, he doesn't always do it in the most conventional manner, but he's a winner. He finds a way to win. He makes it hard on a defense because of the dynamic nature of which he plays. And then, oh, by the way, we've got the best kicker of all time, Justin Tucker, who's always willing to nail a field goal when it matters. And as soon as you get the ball and you get down there, it's over. We got a kicker that's going to make it. And I'm hoping that one day we'll have that in Cleveland as well.
Yeah, it would be nice. Certainly Justin Tucker with the exclamation point there. But I came away again watching this game feeling like this division, we absolutely can beat both of these teams. We've just got to do it. And you can say that about everybody we played so far, but we've got to do it. And that's the frustrating part is there's nothing special in the AFC North this year. There are good football teams. The Bengals can be good. The Ravens can be good. We can be good. The Steelers are not good.
No, I think honestly, because of what I do in the morning, I have a little bit of perspective on Cincinnati's thinking, and I think that they're even more troubled than like we are with what's happened here because our stuff is mental breakdown. Like there is something fundamentally wrong with their offense in that they cannot drive the ball down the field, and up until last night, it was just so. They haven't been able to run it. Like it just doesn't look right offensively for them, and they had expectations of being a team that could get right back to the Super Bowl off, and just isn't all the way back for them.
No, and they're lying.
Yeah, I think.
Go ahead, off.
Yeah, I was going to agree with you. Their offensive line has been a problem, and I think Joe Burrow just not exactly knowing where to go with the football earlier on in the season, and I think part of that was because of the training camp he missed with the appendicitis. But he came back out there. They were trying to go down the field so much, and I think it was putting a lot of stress on their offensive line. Burrow wasn't getting rid of the football. And then it's one of those things that just kind of snowballs, Offensive line, they kind of lose confidence that you're going to get rid of the football from the quarterback standpoint. Now they start doing things that are maybe outside of what they should, taking risks and chances in their pass protection that they shouldn't. Then they're getting beat more often. Then the quarterback's getting beat up. Then he doesn't know what his offensive line is going to do. But, they started throwing a few more short passes, which worked the week before. I was kind of surprised they didn't kind of continue some of that, but it just seems like they're out of rhythm, like between the quarterback and receiver and offensive line, running backs, quarterback. It's not what we came to expect out of the Bengals after making the Super Bowl last year.
No, it's not. I suppose we should, before we let you go here, we should end on some sort of a positive note in that Pittsburgh's got it a whole lot worse than us. They're drilled by the Bills. They are 1-4.
Dreadful.
They've never had a losing season under Tomlin. They're having one this year, and I think it could really bottom out a little bit. There's not a whole lot of bright spots there for that Pittsburgh team. They're much worse than, other than the receiver, who's pretty good.
Pickens.
The kid out of Georgia, George Pickens, is very good. But other than that, there's not a whole lot to look at in Pittsburgh and go, boy, they got a long way to go over there, Hoff.
Yeah, I think they kind of hoped that with the rookie quarterback, they'd have a really good defense that could maybe shepherd them along as Kenny Pickett learned. But without T.J. Watt, it's pretty obvious that defense is completely different. They really have a hard time stopping anybody. I mean, they can't stop the run. They can't get after the quarterback. They can't do anything in the secondary to minimize the passing game. And Kenny Pickett's just doesn't have enough experience to really make enough plays to keep him in the game at all. And I think right now you hear Mike Tomlin, who I think is an excellent coach. He's saying all the right things. He's doing the right things, but I'm interested to see how they react if they're staring at 3-9, 3-10 later in the season and see what type of a coach he looks like when he's faced with those circumstances, which he's never had to face in his entire career.
Yeah, it's something. I guess that's the wrap-up as we close it up with here, Hoff. Despite it all, the leaders in this division are 3-2. No one's looked gangbusters yet in this group.
Yep. It's the truth.
Yeah, it's the thing that makes you so upset, though. It's like you're sitting here going, man, we should be at least 4-1. However, maybe at the end of the day, I think hopefully as fans we can come back to the fact that we are 2-3. Leaders are 3-2. So what? We got to play all those guys a bunch more times. There's tons of season left. We've played. I think maybe this is why I'm feeling so frustrated and why everybody feels so frustrated. What we've seen is better than what we expected from an offensive standpoint. Certainly.
Oh my God!
We feel like this is a better team than we even expected.
Yes.
And the fact that we just keep blowing it at the end is what's so frustrating. Like you do the hard things and impress us, but you don't do the easy things. If they could just start doing the easy things down the stretch, this is our division to win.
Devil's in the details, and we're failing miserably at that. Appreciate your time, Joe, as always.
Cool. Thanks for having me on, guys. Hopefully next week under better circumstances.
Yes, please.
The great Joe Thomas with the Joe Thomas Hour of Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Bally Bet. You listen to 850 ESPN Cleveland. Join us. B-Dubs in
Hey,
Strongsville
you too, brother.
tomorrow. You sure? 1 to 3.
I'm not sure.
Stop
gonna
out and
count
meet
on it.
Browns legend Kevin Mack from 1 to 2. Visit the Cleveland Browns Facebook page to learn more. We will be out there tomorrow. We have Monday Night Football tonight. Vegas at KC. Vegas getting seven.
Chiefs up 13, about a minute to go.
Oh,
Derek
God.
Carr drops back. He
Oh,
looks
God.
right. He looks left. He finds Darren Waller in the middle of the field for a meaningless touchdown. Great for my fantasy team and great for the Raiders.
I got Kansas City here. I think they're two great teams in the NFL.
One minute,
I think
one
it's
minute.
them, and I think it's Buffalo, and I think everybody else is well behind. I mean, we'll do around the league a little bit tomorrow, obviously, but you think about what happened to Green Bay, in London, Tampa Bay barely just
The NFC
sluggish.
East is the best division in football.
Worst roughing the passer call, I think, in the history of the league. I don't know. I mean, that's literally how we teach 3rd through 5th graders to tackle.
What did they say
Around
was
the
roughing?
waist, head away from the
What
ball.
was the roughing?
We teach it. It's
30,
rugby tackling.
30.
I have no
He
idea.
fell on him? What
No,
was
he
the-
didn't. He rolled
I
him
know.
over.
So what
Like,
are they? What are they?
That's
even
exactly
saying?
what you teach to do. You wrap and you
Teaching
roll them.
tape.
That's it. It's teaching tape, and they nailed Grady Jarrett for it. It was absolutely brutal. You have that to look forward to tomorrow, which is nice. We'll turn the page, get into New England as well. The next level's coming up next. Thanks for listening, everybody. Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland.